We're here at the South Bank at the Being a Man Festival. It's in its third year, and one of the participants this year is Professor Green. He's here to talk about being a man. Well qualified, do you think you are?
I have no idea. I mean, yeah, we're going to find out exactly how much I know about being a man when we sit down in them chairs. Until that point, I've got no idea.
You don't know what you're going to say?
No idea. I've not prepared a speech. Thank God it's a Q&A. Yeah, because if I just had to read out things and talk, I'd probably end up on a tangent talking about how much I love my two little dogs at home or something.
Well, I guess you'll be talking about the different aspects to being a man. You've spoken quite openly about the fact that you suffer with depression, so I imagine people have questions on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's, you said different aspects to being a man. I think a lot of what applies to being a man applies to being a woman. We're expected to adapt and mould to our situations. I don't think there's any one defined role for a man or a woman anymore. I think we have to be so many things, and that's probably where a lot of the pressures and then the anxieties come from.
Should we take a walk over to the
stage?
Let's
go and have a look. I haven't been up there yet.
So. Get you used to your environment. So before events like this, do you get nervous? Is it similar to performing before a concert, or is it worse?
Do you know what? I just try and not think about it. I think the more you think about things, you start to overthink, and then that's when anxieties creep in. I just try and distract myself by talking to... So this is doing great for me, by the way. Just having a little chinwag before. It just stops my mind from worrying about what's to come. Yeah, and then you just wing it. That's kind of how I've done everything up until this point.
And it's worked so far.
It's worked all right, hasn't it?
Well, people are gathering. I think you're going to have quite a healthy crowd listening to what you've got to say.
Thankfully.
Let's just see if we've got any texts coming in. Just one here saying, do you think depression is talked about enough?
Interesting question. I think 2016 there's definitely been a rise in awareness, and I think there's much wider and much kind of... I can't articulate myself all of a sudden. I think the conversation's been started, and I think there's a hell of a lot, like I see a lot more in the media about depression, about anxiety, about suicide. It seems to be much more prominent in media nowadays than what it was even last year.
And particularly pertaining to men?
Yes, definitely, because of it being the largest killer from, I think, the ages of 15 to 45, which no one would think. If you didn't know that answer, if someone asked you what the biggest killer of men was between those ages, you'd probably think, I don't know, vehicle accidents or, but I don't think that suicide would be the first thing to come to mind.
And why do you think men are resorting to suicide? Or what are the particular pressures that they face, do you think?
I think there's a lot of pressures that we face. I think there's relationship stress, there's work stress, especially, in the world that we live in here in England. Suicide is not as prevalent in third world countries, which, when you think about it, you have people who would do anything to live, and then you have us here who have everything on our doorstep, and yet we're the ones who take our lives. And I think that says a lot about the pressures that come from the world that we live in and how how we have to live.
I suppose it speaks to the simplicity of life, that perhaps if we shave off a lot of the unnecessary parts of life and just get to the
But it takes a long time to, I'm 33 today, actually.
Thank
you.
I didn't know that.
I don't look it, do I?
No, you don't. Sorry, no, I missed my cue. Don't look at it at all.
Thanks, no. But I think it just, and it's taken me until now to kind of realise that actually a lot of things that I used to worry about and that used to stress me out weren't worth worrying about, and the things that make me happy are actually the simplest things. It's just conversations with mates.
One of the things that might make a lot of people happy. One of the participants today at the Being a Man Festival is Roger Moore. Bombed. Are you looking forward to hearing what he's got to say?
Definitely, yeah. It was funny. I don't know what was going on upstairs. If someone was rehearsing, but we came out of the dressing room I was in, and I just heard da 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 da, and it all got everyone started moving a little bit like a secret agent.
He's in the house. He's in the house. Let's see if we've got some more questions here.
Cool.
Why is the subject of mental health still a bit of a taboo amongst men?
I think because for so long it has been. I don't think the fix is going to be overnight either. I think it will be generational. I think with the conversation that is alive now, as long as that's kept open, what comes first is awareness. After awareness comes understanding, and with understanding comes the removal of the taboo. So I do think it's going to take a while. I don't think the fix is going to happen overnight, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
Let's walk further up onto the stage so we can get you used to where you'll be this afternoon. Another question here for you. Are there any obvious signs of mental health people can spot if they think a friend or family member might be suffering in silence?
I think quite often people do suffer in silence, and there aren't really any signs that people do see. You know, a lot of the time when you hear stories, and I know this from people I've spoken to, you speak to people and the person who's taken their life or has tried to take their life is often the happy-go-lucky person who you'd never imagine to ever do so. So I think it's quite difficult.
Let's take a seat. To assume the position. So, people are just going to be firing questions from the audience at you.
Is it all from the audience?
I think so. I think
Oh, wow.
questions are coming from the audience,
Okay.
and you should be interrogated. They're not going to shine a bright light.
Interrogated, lovely. Yeah, I've never been in that situation before.
Another question here: are men more vulnerable than women? Do you think? That's interesting.
Are men more vulnerable than women? No. Or in fact, yes, in the sense that we're less willing to talk about our vulnerabilities or our insecurities should they occur. I think we definitely put a face on things. I think women are more likely to talk.
It's like women are more likely to go to the doctors, aren't they? I mean, in my household, my doctor.
Although I'm OCD, so I spend a hell of a lot of time at the doctors.
Really? Oh, really?
Yeah, well, my OCD presents as hypochondria quite a lot.
Does it?
Yeah, definitely.
Does it?
Yeah.
But do you...
My doctor was at my wedding, if that says anything.
Do you identify it, though? When you think something's wrong, is there another voice that says, really, there's nothing wrong with you?
The older I get and the more aware I get, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it occurs in periods of stress, you know, when I've got so much going on and I'm trying to juggle so many things, that's when it tends to come out, and I start sleeping less and everything starts to get a little bit worse. And it takes me a while to spot it, but I'm getting much better at spotting it a hell of a lot quicker. And whereas, you know, there was a time when I was younger when I would probably do things that would make things worse, although help things temporarily, you know, now I do the things that make it better. I try and build routine. You know, I have a bath at 9 o'clock, I'm in bed by 9:30, which I know, rock star. But actually you have to learn to take care of yourself.
Yes, and you can feel when perhaps you're
yeah, and I've got a lot of responsibility now, you know, there's a hell of a lot going on. I'm shooting 2 documentaries simultaneously, there's a music career, I start lip sync next week, and amongst that, you know, I've got pets that are my responsibility, I've got a mortgage, grown up now.
You're an adult.
Yeah, scary.
Another question here, what advice can you give to men who think they might be suffering from depression or a mental health problem?
The important thing is to find someone and the right person, which is often quite difficult to talk to, because sometimes I think people build themselves up and they open up to someone, and if you open up to someone who doesn't have any understanding of mental health issues or depression or anxiety because they've never gone through it, they might just say, come on mate, pull yourself together. And that's not their fault. They're not doing that to give you bad advice, but that's the last thing you need to hear. And then quite often people become more closed off because they don't want to get that response again. So really it's just about taking the time to find someone who's, you know, educated enough on the matter or who has an understanding of it that you can trust and be open with.
And have you had that response? Have you had people saying to you, you know, you've got so much to be thankful for, so much to be happy about, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, completely. Yeah,
which
makes it even harder because you're made to feel ungrateful. You know, God forbid I complain about anything. But when before I became successful, I thought, you know, I was silly. I thought if I become successful in music, then it will absolve me of all my issues. I'll just be happy because you're sold happiness is something that you should be all the time. If anything, I think, you know, at baseline you have content. You have rises, which are happiness, you have lows, which are sadness, but if anything is, you know, if there's anything linear, then that baseline is really just content. Happiness is not a constant. But yeah, it's really difficult because you feel like, you know, you've got everything that everyone wants, or at least people think you have. You're not allowed to have good and bad days anymore. Of course you have good and bad days. You're human. Things still affect you.
But how do you know when you're having a bad day and when you're descending into depression? How do you differentiate between the two?
Things don't make me happy. Things that I would normally enjoy don't make me happy. That's a horrible feeling because you just start to feel like, well, you know, where's the point in things? You know, why am I doing all of this if none of it is making me feel good?
Leslie here is asking, what sort of help is there for teenagers?
Well, I'm patron of an organisation called CALM, Campaign Against Living Miserably, which is male specific. I know that the lines are open there. You would hope there'd be some support from parents, but I understand that some children, well, one, don't have that luxury. I didn't growing up. Although I did have support from family members, but there's also other charities out there like Mind, and I'm sure there's a lot of others that I'm not totally aware of.
And what about those who are turning to substances, be it alcohol or other types of
slippery slope, isn't it? Because it's always available, and if you ultimately you're never with things like that, you're just plastering over the cracks. You're never actually dealing with the issues, and I think that. I think it's scary because you hear a lot of stories of people going to the doctors with depression and just getting handed a Prozac prescription without any actual analysis, without seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist. And I think that's very much the same and quite dangerous. I've never taken medication. I've always wanted to try and deal with things in a way in which didn't involve that. I know some people have more severe issues which do need it, but then I think that should be... It's quite difficult for a GP to have an understanding of the whole spectrum of mental health issues.
But I guess your music is part of your healing, is it?
Completely, yeah, because it gives me an understanding of what's going on inside. I think a lot of the time when all you have is what's in here, and that's where things manifest, isn't it? If you don't get them out, then they manifest, and they often become bigger than they... it's like if you hold off on having a conversation with someone about something, because you're a little bit apprehensive, in your mind that becomes a bigger and bigger problem, but then when you have the conversation, half the time you're like, I wish I would have done that a month ago. It was, it was nothing to worry about, but it's the same with so many things. If you keep things inside, they get worse and they burden you.
So, in the conversation with Professor Green starts at what time here at the South Bank?
It starts at 12 o'clock.
12 o'clock?
Yeah.
We'll be here listening and watching. No pressure.
No pressure. It's only 7 minutes.
Okay, look forward to hearing what you're going to say.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.